the Nutty Putty Cave, located about 55 miles south of Salt Lake City. It is a hydrothermal cave that was first explored in 1960 by Dale Green. It was made up of a clay-like material that coated most of the walls. This clay seemed to ooze from the walls, and even some of the more solid walls would begin to turn pliable if you pressed too hard against them. This cave, while rated as a good cave for beginners, was no stranger to rescues. In 1999, Chris Hale and Chris Marrow, both 17, got stuck in the birth canal for about 12 hours before being freed. In 2004, 2 more in different incidents a week apart got stuck and nearly lost their lives in Ed's Push, which is a passage that doesn't lead to anywhere. At 26 years old, John Edward Jones had a good life. Growing up in Utah, his father took him and his 5 brothers and 2 sisters caving all over Utah, but they had never been to the Nutty Putty Cave. John was living in Virginia with his wife Emily, 1-year-old daughter Lizzie, and soon-to-be-born son. John and his family collected in Utah at his parents' home to celebrate Thanksgiving in 2009, and John and his younger brother Josh, who was 23 at the time, decides to go with a group of 9 friends to the Nutty Putty Cave to do some exploring. They arrived at about 8 p.m. and quickly started exploring the cave, sliding down at the entry, called the Big Slide. They entered the largest section of the cave. From there, John and Josh, and 2 of her other friends, who also had not been to the Nutty Putty Cave before, heard about the birth canal and wanted to check it out. John was very confident in his abilities, so he decided to leave the group. He entered into the passage headfirst and wiggled his way through, knowing that towards the end of the passage it would open up into another kind of larger area. While inching forward in a minuscule army crawl, wiggling his hips, stomach, and fingers, John started to get concerned when the passage did not open up, and it just kept getting tighter and tighter. And eventually, he noticed there was a little lip in the tunnel, and it seemed to disappear down, so he crawled through headfirst in an attempt to find more room to turn around. At this point, John was in a part of the passage that was angled at about a 70 degrees downward slope, and he was completely stuck. This section of the tunnel was only 10 inches wide and 14 inches high. His brother Josh was the one who figured out that John was stuck, and after taking a few moments to try to get him pulled out, they decided that Josh had to go leave John behind and call for help. The first person to arrive to help them out was a woman named Susan Motola, or Susie, who was a local rescue volunteer. John responded, "Hey Susie, thanks for coming, but I really want to get out." Susie tried to help John shift positions, so that way he might be able to help assist himself and getting out. But she wasn't strong enough to move him. Outside of the cave was Emily, John's parents, 137 rescuers, volunteers, emergency services, and a helicopter waited for John to be pulled free. While setting up the pulley system, a radio was able to be lowered in enough that John could talk to Emily. They spoke and prayed together, and then it was time to start pulling. After 19 hours, they finally had a complete system in place, and they were having success. The 8-man team, that included Susie, in the large cavern pulling had to pause frequently because John's legs were in so much pain, just from the lack of blood flow. On the 3rd pull, John was high enough that he was able to look up and see Ryan Schultz, the rescuer who was in passage with John. He smiled, and the team pulled again. Back in the cavern, the team of 8 fell back at the same time they heard a painful shout echo through the cave. They had no idea what happened until Ryan came crawling from the hole with blood all over his face. The pulley that was at the opening of the passage John was stuck in broke away from the cave wall and basically went directly into Ryan's face. The pulley didn't fail. It was the rock that had broken off. Ryan asked his dad to go down and be with John. He insisted that someone go to be with him immediately. When Ryan's dad, Dave, arrived, he noticed that John began having some breathing issues and decided to wrap a rope around John's waist. Exhausted, Dave left the cave and was replaced by Brandon. But when Brandon arrived, he was unable to get a response from John. A paramedic climbed in to check and then declared John dead at 11:57 p.m. November 25, 2009, after a harrowing 27 hours of work trying to free him. His determined cause of death is suffocation and cardiac arrest. It was decided that the cave would be John's grave. The entire cave was closed to the public, and the opening was sealed shut with cement. A plaque in memory of John was placed at the entrance by his family.